So welcome everyone back. We're now going on to our session 7, which is the launch of the new white paper. So this new white paper is called The New Era of Thinking and Practice in Change and Transformation, a call to action for leaders of health and care. And we've got Helen Bevan, who's going to present to us about what this new white paper is about and where you can find it. So Helen, I'm just going to move on to your slides right now.
Okay,
thank
great.
You. Over to you.
Thank you, Mina. Yeah, so we're launching this white paper today, to fit in with the celebration day for Change Day. And you know what I'd say about this paper? It really is in the spirit of Change Day. And what we've done is that we've looked across the world at people who are leading kind of thinkers and practitioners around change and transformation. I reckon 95% of the sources are not health and care specific, but what we've tried to do is to take that thinking and bring it back to us. And it's about, how can we make change happen at a faster rate and be more disruptive? But what it also is, this white paper, as Mina said, is it's a call to action. And, it's a call to leaders of health and care to join this kind of new breed of healthcare leaders across the world who are rethinking and rewriting how we go about change and leading change from the future, because we need to get different change results in health and care. So, and it's going to be released today. It's going to be released later on today, and we've got the website address there. And this afternoon you'll be able to go onto that website and get hold of the white paper. And this is a little sneak preview of what it looks like and what the contents are. Do I love the kind of the style of it. Kind of Banksy, sort of slightly edgy, sort of graffiti aspect to it. So what we basically have in it is first of all an analysis of what is happening in the wider world of change. I'll show you some of that in a moment, and what that actually means for leaders of health and care. What we then do is to say, having looked at this agenda, what do we need to do differently and additionally? And we've identified 5 enablers, and I'll talk to you about those shortly. And then we have a call to action for leaders with 15 activities. At the end, and I won't go into them now, we've got 4 case studies. And I think that these illustrate the points that we make in the white paper really well. The first one is a fantastic local case study from Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly around how they've been able to use or be able to work with local people, different voices, diversity in a way that I think hardly anybody has been able to do in other parts of the country, and got really great results. The second one is a very, very nice story of where a first-year nursing student set up a movement around avoiding pressure ulcers. The third case study is our very own Change Day hobbies, and again, I think they're a really great example of a voluntary self-organising network of local leaders across the country. And then the fourth case study that we know and love is the School for Health and Care Radicals. How do we teach change agents to rock the boat and stay in it? So what I'm not going to do in this session is talk through the case studies, but I am going to talk about some of the content in the paper. So let's talk, what is happening in the wider world of change. And what I'd say is happening in the world is that there are seismic shifts taking place. And the main reasons for that is because we are in an era that is because technology has opened up, so many opportunities for us, that we're living in a world that's much more social, we're connecting with each other, and also it's a world that's much more open in terms of our ability to gain knowledge and think in different ways. So what are some of these seismic shifts that we talk about in the white paper? The first is that, in general, change is becoming much, much more disruptive. So in a sense, the solutions of the future are less small-scale incremental change, where there's absolutely a place for that, and it's really important, and much more big and disruptive changes. And the other thing that's happening is change is happening at a quicker and quicker rate. The second thing that's happening is that digital connection enables us to connect with almost anyone in the world 24 hours a day, very little effort, very little cost. And, you know, I just put this slide in actually because, you know, it just really made me think about how much things have changed, you know. So this is from Thomas Friedman, and he was looking back to 2005, not even a decade ago. And Facebook didn't exist. And Twitter was still a sound that a bird made. A cloud was a thing in the sky. 4G was apparently a parking place. I didn't know this, but LinkedIn was a prison. And applications were what you sent to go to university. And finally, Skype was a typo. And we can like laugh about this, but you know, these are things that in our world, you know, we see all the time, and we take account of, and it's just, and yet, you know, even 9 years ago they didn't exist, and I think it just shows how much things are changing. And this is, you know, great and gives us lots of opportunities, but it also creates a lot of additional challenges. And a lot of us have seen this slide already. But getting information off the internet is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. And I'd say we are overwhelmed with unprocessed raw data. You know, we don't know whether the knowledge that we're taking comes from a trusted source. We don't know how relative it is for us. The third shift is that work is becoming more and more complex. It's a global phenomenon across the world, and we certainly see it in our world of health and care, where, you know, just talk to anybody who works in hospitals on wards, you know, in terms of the sheer complexity and the acuity of the patients compared to even 5 or 6 years ago, or in primary care in terms of, you know, changing demographics, changing technology, and, you know, supporting patients who, I don't know, even 5 years ago would have been in a hospital bed. The issue for that, for us as change agents, is that what it means is that a lot of the techniques that we used before, you know, best practice databases, trying to replicate things from one setting to another, guidance and reference manuals, they just don't work as well in this new world. What also happens is that work complexity means that hierarchical power is diminishing, because it's not about people doing discrete jobs that you can organize through command and control anymore. So in a sense, as leaders, as change leaders, we need to work with hierarchy but beyond hierarchy. And final thing that's happening is that changes are moving further and further to the edge of organizations. And again, what that means is that, you know, previously organizational development and change was happening at the core or the center of organizations. But the trouble is that if we frame or position our change activities at the center, then they tend to be kind of status quo incremental. And if we need really big radical changes, we have to position our change away from the center. And when we talk about the edge, it means actually having people who are leading change, who can like look over the edge and connect up with all sorts of other people all over the world, but also look inside the organization as well. So the change is, so the edge is where change is going. Now, this is interesting. This is actually an article that was in the Roy Lilly blog a couple of weeks ago, and I thought really made a great point. And if you look here on the right side of the screen, this is a survey that Bain, the management consultancy, carries out on a regular basis. It's been carrying out for the last 12 years. And it asks leaders from multiple industries, what are your favorite management tools? You know, your favorite tools for change and performance management. And what's interesting is that if you look back to even like to 12 years ago, okay, leaders are saying the same thing. So they're saying the change approaches and the tools that we used 12 years ago are essentially the same as the ones that we're using now. They're still our favorites. So our world has changed massively. Okay? Our ability to connect and learn and make change has changed massively. And yet, very often as leaders, we're stuck, you know, with the same change approaches that we were using a decade ago. So, you know, part of the point that we make in the white paper is that many of the ways that we go about improving health and care were designed in a different mindset for a different set of circumstances. And I so see this in my journeys around the health and care system in the NHS. You know, that in a sense, the way that very often we're trying to manage some of our really big difficulties at the moment around cost and quality is by trying to create more control, more order, and reduce risk when it's probably the opposite of what we should be doing. And I think I take this quote here from Gary Hamel, who is one of the leading influencers in the world around change. And he says, the organizations that survive in the future will be those that are capable of changing as fast as change itself. And that's how our organizations have to be. We need to become as capable of changing as fast as change itself. So when we think about leading change in this new era, what does it mean? The slide's gone a bit funny here in translation, and there should be two labels on it. One of them saying dominant approach, and the other one not saying community, but facing the other way and saying emerging direction. So what I want you to do is to imagine that on the same level as dominant approach, there's another arrow facing the other way that says emerging direction. And what we did on this slide was to compare, the dominant approach, which we see in, 80–90% of large-scale change programs and strategies particularly in the NHS, with this emerging direction. And I mean, just really quickly, in the dominant approach, power comes from hierarchy. It's about positional authority. But increasingly in this emerging direction, power comes through connection because those hierarchical levers don't work as well anymore. When we look at the dominant approach, we talk about the mission and vision of the organisation. Because in a sense, what we've done is that we've tried to transform through a single organisation. But in the future, we're working with our patients, with our families, with communities, with other organisations in different ways. So we have to focus on shared purpose. Okay? In the dominant approach, we talk about making sense through rational argument, through data, and through objective planning processes. Whereas in the emerging direction, it's very much about how we make sense through emotional connection. Because large-scale change, mobilizing, lots of people, connecting, building relationships. People do that on the basis of emotions connecting with values. Innovation in the dominant approach tends to be come from the top of the organisation. So somebody says, well, we've got to take £67 million out of our base budget next year, and we'll do that through a massive innovation programme. So, we, the senior leadership, will kind of enable innovation. Okay, and that's important. But on the other side, it's about grassroots-driven, bottom-up, frontline, viral, patients, patient and frontline staff-driven creativity. Okay, on the left-hand side, the dominant approach. The methods that we use for change are tried and tested and based on experience. And these are the kinds of tools that I've been using as an improvement leader in the NHS for 20 years. And, when I think about Lean, I think about Six Sigma, I think about many quality management tools. They're great. They're really helpful and appropriate, but they're not enough. Because in this new open era, what we're seeing is we're finding, ways to share ideas, to co-create change, to compare data, and we're connecting and learning in very different ways. The dominant approach is about, essentially, much of the thinking is transactional. So when we think about compliance mechanisms, we think about regulation, we think about inspection, we think about performance management. It's about holding people to account for performance. It's transactional. Whereas with the emerging direction, it's relational. Relationships and connections are the basis of change. So what's important about this? We're not saying that the dominant approach is going to go away and be replaced by the emerging direction. I think the many levers of the dominant approach will be with us for a very long time. But in a sense, what we've got to be able to do, I think, as leaders of health and care, is also, build the tools that are part of the emerging direction. And in a sense, we need to be able to operate in both worlds. So in our white paper, we have got 5 enabling themes, which are about, how we adopt, if you like, the kind of change practices that will move us more towards the emerging direction here. And again, it's not either or, we link them up with the dominant approach. And here are 5 things. And so the first one is about activating the disruptors, the heretics, the radicals, the mavericks in our organisation. You know, the kind of boat rockers who took part in the School for Health and Care Radicals. Because, you know, no longer is the small-scale incremental change going to be enough. You know, we need the brave people who will stand up and challenge the status quo, who will think differently, who will open up new fields for action. So we're saying to leaders in health and care, you know, embrace your disruptive innovators and heretics and make them part, you know, give them roles in the mainstream change. Secondly, this whole issue about leading transformation from the edge. And we can think about the edge in different ways, and we talk about this in the white paper. So the edge might mean taking your improvement teams or your innovation teams and putting them at the edge of the organizational system so that, in a sense, they're incubating new ideas and approaches in ways where they've got a lot of space to do that, and they bring it back into the organisation. Leading transformation from the edge can also mean how I, as an individual change leader, choose to position myself and think. So in a sense, as a change leader, I want to be looking over the edge and linking up with all sorts of other people in other organisations and getting lots of new ideas, as well as looking inwards. Number 3 is about changing your story. And there's a quote behind this, which is change your story, change your organisation. Because again, many of the prevalent approaches in particularly in the NHS are about very diagnostic approaches to change, where we say, oh, you know, we're going to transform our urgent care service or our urgent care strategy. So what we do is we look at the whole system and we say, let's analyse and diagnose what's going on, and then we create a whole set of work streams and hold people accountable, and we create a whole set of planned change interventions. You know, there's this kind of power in that, and we've been doing it for a very long time, but it's not actually on its own delivering what we need to deliver. And what we're basically saying is that there's a whole set of new approaches to large-scale change, which are about actually bringing different voices into change processes, and getting people to connect with each other and have different kinds of conversations. And if we change our story, we change our organisation. Number 4 is about curating rather than creating knowledge, because we think that the change leader or the change agent of the future will need to be a curator of knowledge. And if we can link up, you know, with other people, if we can seek out, you know, new ideas and other people's experiences, if we can make sense of them for our own organisations, and you know, take those ideas and make them relevant to us, and we can share them widely, then actually it's a way of creating knowledge for improvement that is much less resource intensive and more likely to deliver results. And then finally, our 5th enabler is about building bridges to connect the disconnected. And what we mean by that is that very often the way that we go about change in health and care is peer-to-peer change. So GP to GP, nurse to nurse, dementia champion to dementia champion. And there's real power in that, because people will be influenced to change by people that are like them. Actually, the number 1 reason why people will be influenced to change by people like themselves is an issue of trust. You know, I trust somebody who's been through the same education as me and who's had similar kinds of experience, who sees the world the way I do. But, you know, this peer-to-peer change only takes us so far. And the problem is that we don't necessarily innovate, and we don't necessarily take our change very far when we're connecting up with people like us. So a really key job for us as change leaders is to actually build bridges, to be the bridges between people who aren't like each other. You know, how do I bring different people and different voices into change? Because it's by building bridges and connecting people and ideas and knowledge that aren't currently connected that we will get the most insights and the biggest innovations. So when we look at those 5 enablers, there's one big theme that like unites them all, that is like a golden thread through them all, and that's the issue around diversity. And diversity is such a key issue for the future. And you know, very often when we talk about diversity, we talk about it in the context of like human resources and making sure that we have a workforce that reflects the local community, and that is really important. But you know, when we look at all the leading edge approaches and thinking about large-scale change, diversity is the issue that underpins them all. Because unless we get different voices in, unless we can have different conversations, unless we embrace different views and dissent, disruption, and you know, the change isn't going to happen. And in a sense, what we're not going to be able to do is take like our existing group of health and care leaders, and all of a sudden they have like a mental conversion to a different way of thinking about change. It ain't going to happen like that, you know. It's about having change processes that bring other people in and enable different kinds of conversations and different kinds of ideas to flourish. And I really like this quote here from Idra Small, you know, the basic, not so secret formula for building an innovation culture. And that's the kind of innovation culture we need in health and care to deliver our transformational goals. Is pretty simple. You know, embrace diversity, start to attract, retain, and promote a diverse workforce. And you know, do this before you start hiring consultants and rethinking your innovation process. There is no process that works without true diversity. And you know, the evidence on this is so clear. Every time when you put 2 teams together, and one team is like a mega talented, you know, really, really clever group of people, okay, and you get them to perform tasks, and you pit them against a diverse team that isn't star performers, but has got those different perspectives and experiences. You know, the diverse team wins nearly every time. So this has to be a very, very big focus for us going forward. And final slide. What we do in the white paper is set out 15 actions for leaders that are based on, you know, our analysis of where we are and where we want to be. And you know what I'd say about this? It's kind of going back to that diagram earlier on that talked about the, you know, the traditional way that we do things and the emerging directions. And in a sense, this is about how do we balance ourselves as leaders and bring more of the strength of the emerging direction into the way that we're working. So I'll stop there.
Great, thanks, Helen. We've got a few minutes for questions. We're going to cut the end of this session a little bit short, and we're hoping to show the video that you produced while you can go off and get ready for your next session. But okay, in the next 10 minutes, if anyone has any questions or comments, if you can just raise your hand, your virtual hand will unmute you and allow you to pose your question or ask a comment, or just write it in the chat box as well.
Yeah, would love to get some comments. Yeah, would love to get some comments.
There's some people's thoughts. It looks like anyone has their hands up right now. So maybe if we go to Pip and Rosanna while some people have some time to think about any questions or comments. So Pip, we're going to unmute you in a second.
Okay, hi Nina. Hi Helen.
Hi Pip.
Great, really interesting to hear all of that. I have a feeling that people were probably so engrossed in what you were saying that there hasn't been a huge amount on Twitter, but I think one of the interesting comments was about how we've got to stop our reliance on outdated tools and really find up-to-date and the latest approaches to change. That was one from Charlie Keeney. And I was also wondering myself about you talking about building bridges and diversity and the extent to which that could or should include interprofessional education and interprofessional practice. So I think that's, I think the other thing that people kind of connected with was your statement about the need for emotions to connect with values in order to bring about change. I think that's a really lovely reminder that we've got to always bear in mind the heart and the head.
No, Thank you for that. And it's Jackie on now. Can we? Because I was really keen to kind of hear Jackie Linton's voice in this as well.
Yeah, I was just am I on?
Hi, Jackie. I can see you.
Oh, hi there. Hi there. Yeah, you know, one of the things I was reflecting on, Helen, is that we have just become, you know, the top in the trend, you know, across the world. The NHS is the #1 organisation in the world. So what does it take to be the #1 organisation in the world when it comes to change?
Yeah.
And it just made me reflect on some of the things that you were saying. What will it take us to be able to take on some of these new tools and new ways of working? Because there's something about it that is about having a belief in actually it's going to have an impact. And I think that that's an interesting kind of thought for me about some of the things that you were saying around, you know, using new methods. You know, that thing that you put up about Roy Lilly, you know, the Roy Lilly tool. And that we're using this, and there is a belief that actually this is going to have an impact. I think that is a massive question for leaders in healthcare, to really believe that this is actually going to have an impact.
Yeah, it's a great point. You know, the other thing I was just going to say is the reason why where it says 15 actions for leaders and certain words are in a different colour is because the whole thing is peppered with resources. And we've got, I think there's over 100 references and, you know, resources that we relate to. So the whole thing is kind of peppered with hyperlinks and sources of evidence around the things we're saying in it.
What do other people feel who are on the call about, you know, these actions and what they might mean to you as either as a change leader or as someone working in an organisation where you may be struggling with, you know, as a lone voice? I wonder if we could maybe ask somebody. Shall we be brave and just ask somebody direct?
Yeah, go on then. Let's see who we've got.
I wonder if we could ask, Tim Rawson. I see that you have a completely different perspective, maybe. Tim Rawson from the USA. Well, what's your kind of thoughts on this? And then I wondered if we could ask Jill Saunders. Jim Rawson. And maybe we could ask Jill Saunders as well.
Jim's been busy tweeting.
Okay.
So we're just trying to unmute Jim. Just hang on 1 second while we do that.
In the meantime, Helen, could you repeat the question, Jackie? We've had a request from Damien on the web chat to repeat the question. You'd also like to answer.
I was just thinking about the 15 actions that are up there for leaders, and whether you're a leader of change or whether you're a leader, you know, of an organisation or have a leadership role, how do some of those actions feel to you in terms of, you know, your everyday practice and your everyday, you know, trying to make a difference and a change within your organisation? How do some of these changes or these points resonate? Oh, Jim's having audio problems.
Yeah. But Jill is unmuted as well now.
Hi, Jill.
Oh, no. She's back on mute.
Not doing very well. Oh, well.
Well, I think we have got to 12:10, and I'm just aware that we have to set up the next Google Hangout. So, Helen, it would be great if we can get you to start setting up the next Google Hangout. And what we'll try to do in the next 10 minutes is play your video that you just produced about the white paper.
Okay, so
we're going to try and do that.
This video, if it works, it's embedded in this document, and it's about the change leader of the future, and like imagining what the future change leader might be like. So if it doesn't work now, you can just play the link from the white paper when you get it.
Yeah, and we might be able to get the sound for sure working, but the video image might be slow on your computer, so just bear with us.
Okay, and I'll see you shortly from,
thanks,
from the
Helen.
Google Hangout in North Bristol. Brilliant.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
So
Okay,
the Google Hangout in North Bristol will be starting at approximately 12:20.
Yeah.
For those of you who want to take a quick break.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
In the 10 minutes, we'll say. Yeah, thanks, Helen. Bye. Okay, so the video will start soon, and for those of you who want to take a break, if you can come back in about 10 minutes, that would be great.